I assume the gentleman would agree that when we're talking about this spending, let's pause for a second. Let's just set aside the fact that we're giving a $76 billion increase to a Defense Department which has not been held accountable for its departure from Afghanistan, leaving billions behind, walking away from Bagram, undermining our interests, no accountability, no review of the woke policies, the, orders not to use terms like mom and dad at the Air Force Academy, or a whole story yesterday about the Marines maybe walking away from the use of sir and ma'am. Like the just fundamental undermining of the culture of the Department of Defense, purposeful, by the way, which every recruit, every member of the Armed Forces active duty that I talk to says it's gutting the ability to recruit. It's gutting the ability to have strong morale. Let's put aside that. Let's put aside $45 billion for Ukraine without accountability and a knowledge of how it's being spent and what it's being used for in our national security interests. Let's set aside $40 billion for disaster relief. I don't even know where all it's going. Let's set aside the $16 billion of earmarks you just talked about and that you and I outlined. Let's set aside the $3 billion for DHS with no policy changes and, in fact, language inserted in the bill that prevents us from actually securing the border while processing more people. The $600 million for the FBI, the new headquarters for the FBI, the $215 million for ATF, the $2.5 billion for the NIH, which has been basically at war with freedom and forcing needles into the arm of the American people and undermining the freedom of the American people in terms of their health choices and paying Anthony Fauci's salary, a CDC of $760 million, the World Health Organization, the State Department of $3.6 billion, an education department which is administering Biden's $400 billion student loan bailout. All of that stuff, let's ignore all of that. Let's ignore all of those horrible policies, all the things that it's doing to undermine our freedom and creating the alphabet soup and expanding the alphabet soup of bureaucracy that is tyrannizing the American people. Let's put all that aside. We're just talking about inflation, and we're spending more money and dumping more money while we're raising interest rates to cool it. We're going to spend more money, causing more inflation, undermining the dollar even more. And you had Mitch McConnell just saying in July of 2022, a few years back, Republican policies created the best economy for American workers in a generation, low inflation, robust growth, record unemployment. Democrats' recklessness, he said, has produced soaring inflation, slowing growth, and growing risk of a full-on recession. How about Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia in August of 2022 in an op-ed, thumping the lectern about the Inflation Reduction Act. Quote, Americans understand pumping hundreds of billions of dollars into the economy and raising taxes will certainly not reduce inflation. How about Todd Young from Indiana, quote, about the border, this is a national security crisis, we must strengthen our border security. How about Mitt Romney from Utah, told Mayorkas he needed to secure the border and urged him to keep Title 42 in place and just worked against the whole effort today by the junior senator from Utah. Things are upside down, and we're spending money we don't have, causing inflation, and Republicans go out and campaign against it, and then they do it. And my Democratic colleagues have never once had an honest conversation on the floor of this House about what we're going to do about inflation, what we're going to do about spending money we don't have, racking up debt. When I came to Congress as a staffer on the Senate Judiciary Committee, our national debt in 2003 was about $6 trillion, I think. And we're at $31.4 trillion and climbing. The question here is, are we going to do anything about it? And the resounding answer from this body, and including my colleagues on this side of the aisle, are no, we're not. So I think my question for the gentleman is, does he share my belief that it is time to end the status quo, and it is time for a radical departure from the way we are doing things? It is a time to change the way we are doing business in the House of Representatives. It is a time for a change to do the way we're doing business in the United States Senate, and that it is our job to keep our heads up high as not conservatives, not Republicans or Democrats, but as Americans who want to actually do the hard work necessary to be responsible stewards of this country, of our great birthright, Does the gentleman agree with me that as we head into the 118th Congress, and as Republicans are in the majority, that we must fundamentally change this institution from top to bottom, from the leadership down? This place must change, and that we will not accept anything but change. That's why we were sent here. And that as we exit here for Christmas, as you go home to your daughters, as I go home to my son and my daughter, that I'm not going to look them in the eye and say that I didn't do everything I know how to do to change this place so that we can save America for them.